My name is Linda. I am 58 years old. I have been married to my husband Mark for 33 years, a lifetime woven from quiet routines and shared silences. We live in the peaceful suburbs of Cland, Ohio, where the days blend softly into one another. Our two children are grown now, scattered across distant states. I catch glimpses of their lives through photographs and fleeting Sunday calls, each one a reminder of how time has gently carried us forward. Mark has spent nearly 2 decades in corporate finance, his days filled with numbers and deadlines. I retired early from my role as a school librarian last year. These days, I fill my hours with tending my garden, losing myself in books, and accompanying Mark to the occasional charity event, always the steady, supportive wife by his side. It was at one such charity dinner, hosted by Mark's boss Gregory Nash, that the quiet rhythm of my life began to tremble. I had heard Gregory's name over the years, described by Mark as sharp, traditional, and commanding, but we had never met. The invitation led us to an elegant private club downtown, its dark wood paneling glowing under soft lights, accompanied by the gentle strains of piano music. Waiters moved like shadows, and the air carried a sense of old-world grace. That evening, I took unusual care with my appearance. I wore a navy dress that had waited patiently in my closet for years, styled my hair with quiet intention, and added a hint of lipstick. I told myself it was nothing more than wanting to look presentable, yet deep inside, a small part of me longed to feel truly seen again. Mark introduced me to his colleagues with pride, and I smiled through polite conversations about work and weather. Then Gregory approached. Tall and distinguished, with silver-streaked hair and a clean-shaven jaw, his presence filled the room without effort. His eyes held mine a moment longer than expected, calm yet searching. "You must be Linda," he said, his voice measured and warm. "Mark has told me you were once a librarian. The keepers of secrets. I've always believed," I replied with a gentle smile. "Only the best ones." His quiet laugh felt genuine, and unlike the others, he lingered. He asked about the books that moved me, the stories that still stirred my heart, questions no one had asked in years. For those brief minutes, I felt a spark of the woman I used to be, alive with thoughts and passions that had quietly faded into the background of daily life. At dinner, I found myself seated between Mark and Gregory. The evening unfolded slowly, filled with the soft clink of silverware and murmured business stories. When conversation turned to a local author I admired, I spoke up. Gregory turned to me, surprise and interest lighting his features. "I had no idea you carried such passion within you." Before I could respond, I felt the lightest brush of his hand against mine beneath the table. It lingered, just a moment too long to be accidental, his fingers warm and intentional against my skin. My heart quickened. I did not pull away immediately. When I finally glanced at him, he was listening attentively to another guest, as though nothing had passed between us. Yet later, when his eyes met mine again, there was a quiet acknowledgement, a softness that unsettled the careful balance of my world. I excused myself to the restroom, needing air. In the mirror, I searched my reflection. This was not youthful infatuation or reckless desire. It was something deeper, a profound sense of being noticed, of my inner world mattering again. The feeling lingered like the opening lines of a forgotten book, full of promise and gentle uncertainty. Back at the table, the moment repeated in the subtlest way, a brush of fingers that carried the weight of unspoken understanding. We said nothing. We did not need to. Yet I knew, with a mix of quiet thrill and unease, that something had shifted. In the days that followed, life on the surface remained unchanged. Mark left early each morning with his travel mug of coffee and a quick kiss on my cheek. I tended my rose garden, sorted old photographs, and wandered the farmer's market. But Gregory's touch and gaze haunted my thoughts. It had been so long since anyone looked at me with genuine curiosity, not out of habit or duty, but as if rediscovering a hidden depth. Mark's love was real and steadfast, built over decades of shared life, yet it had softened into comfortable familiarity. Gregory's attention awakened a part of me I had almost forgotten, the woman who still carried dreams and feelings beyond the roles of wife and mother. A few days later, Mark mentioned Gregory's invitation to a weekend gathering at his home. "He wants the team to feel more connected," Mark explained casually while loosening his tie. "He specifically hoped you would come. Said he enjoyed your conversation." My cheeks warmed, but I kept my voice steady. That Saturday, we drove to Gregory's beautiful colonial home nestled among the woods. Early spring air carried the scent of blooming flowers, and soft jazz drifted from open windows. About a dozen guests mingled on the stone patio, laughter rising gently into the evening. Gregory greeted us at the door with poised warmth. "Linda," he said, his smile reaching his eyes, "I'm so glad you made it." His hand rested lightly on the small of my back for the briefest moment as he guided us inside, subtle yet deliberate. A quiet current passed through me. As the night progressed, Mark drifted into business discussions with colleagues. Gregory and I found ourselves alone near the fire pit, the flames casting dancing shadows. He handed me a glass of white wine. "You seemed distant earlier. Is everything all right?" I hesitated, then shared a fragment of truth. How retirement sometimes made me feel invisible, like a page turned too quickly. He studied me with quiet intensity. "You are far from invisible, Linda." The way he spoke my name felt intimate, like a secret shared beneath the stars. We stood in comfortable silence as the sky darkened. Then gently he reached for my hand. This time there was no pretense of accident. His thumb traced slow, thoughtful circles across my fingers, reassuring, unhurried. I began softly, the words catching. "You have done nothing wrong," he replied, his voice steady and kind. "Nor have I." I did not withdraw my hand. I simply allowed the moment to exist between us, heavy with possibility, yet free of demands. The scent of wood smoke and night flowers wrapped around us. When voices called from the patio, we parted naturally. But inside, something had awakened more deeply, a quiet stirring of self, of curiosity about what else life might still hold. On the drive home, Mark hummed contentedly to the radio, unaware. I gazed at the moonlit road, my heart caught between gratitude for the life we had built and an unexpected longing for this new, unspoken awareness. The week that followed carried a subtle shift. Outwardly, everything stayed the same. Morning papers, folded laundry, familiar jazz on the radio. Yet within me, layers were gently unfolding. There were no calls or messages from Gregory, nothing overt to grasp. Only the memory of his touch and gaze lingered like a promise half-whispered. Then came Friday. Over dinner, Mark mentioned another invitation from Gregory, a client dinner downtown. "Mostly business formalities," he said between bites. "Spouses are welcome, but I told him you probably wouldn't want another long evening of shop talk." I remained silent, the familiar rhythm of our life now humming with new, unspoken questions. Where this path might lead, I did not know, but for the first time in years, I felt the stirring pages of a story I had long stopped expecting to read. Rewritten script section. Approx. 20 characters. I watched the candle flickering gently in the center of the table, its flame casting soft shadows across the linen. The weight of Mark's casual words hung in the air between us. "What if I did want to go?" I said at last, the words slipping out before I could second-guess them. Even I was surprised by the quiet determination in my voice. Mark looked up from his plate, eyebrows raised. "You sure? It could be a nice night out for you." And just like that, 2 evenings later, I found myself stepping into a quiet, upscale restaurant wearing a soft burgundy dress and a silk scarf draped around my shoulders. The lighting was low and warm, the mahogany walls glowing with polished elegance. Gregory was already there, engaged in conversation near the wine display. When his gaze found me, everything seemed to pause. There was no immediate smile, just a long, steady look that held recognition, followed by the faintest curve at the corner of his mouth. Once we were seated, he said simply, "Linda, you look elegant tonight." I thanked him softly, keeping my tone measured with Mark beside me. Yet beneath the surface of polite conversation, something unspoken passed between Gregory and me, an invisible current, quiet and alive. Dinner unfolded at its own unhurried pace. Talk drifted through quarterly results, client demands, and shifting markets. I nodded along, sipped my wine, and smiled at the right moments. But my true awareness remained centered on the space between Gregory and me. There were no overt touches this time, no lingering glances that might raise suspicion, only careful restraint wrapped in perfect decorum. Still, a steady spark glowed beneath it all, warming the edges of my thoughts. After dessert, Mark stepped away to take a work call. In that brief pocket of privacy, Gregory leaned slightly toward me. I wasn't sure you would come, he said, his voice low and thoughtful. I wasn't sure either, I answered honestly. He studied my face with gentle intensity. You haven't stopped thinking about it, have you? It wasn't really a question, and I didn't deny it. I've been married most of my adult life, I said quietly, my fingers tracing the stem of my glass. I don't want to become the kind of woman who loses herself in something foolish. He nodded slowly, and for a heartbeat I feared he might withdraw. Instead, he replied with calm sincerity, I don't think you're foolish at all. Linda, I think you've simply been quiet for far too long. Those words reached a place inside me I had almost forgotten. A deep ache to be truly heard, to be seen beyond the roles I had carried for decades. I'm not asking for anything, he continued softly. Not tonight, perhaps not ever. But if you ever wish to talk, really talk, I would like that. No pressure, only truth. I didn't answer right away, yet I held his gaze. When Mark returned, the evening gently wound down. Goodbyes were exchanged with professional warmth. Gregory shook Mark's hand firmly, and when he turned to me, his touch was brief and proper. But his eyes told a different story, one of quiet understanding and possibility. On the ride home, Mark spoke animatedly about projections and budgets. I stared out at the golden city lights painting patterns across the glass, feeling suspended between two realities, the faithful life I had always known and this new, tentative breath of something more stirring beneath it. When we pulled into the driveway, Mark squeezed my hand. Thanks for coming tonight. It meant a lot. I smiled back, but my heart remained unsettled, alive with questions. That night, I lay awake long after Mark